blessing. So when I run into rejection, I know it's only redirection. I see the blessings right beside me. The chances are quite unlikely. I do it like I'm in my Nikes. Don't make excuses, they never excite me. Boxes, boxes. I cannot fit in the boxes. Stop it, stop it. Quitting was never an option. Exhausted, exhausted. This passion is never exhausted. And you cannot stop it. Nah, you cannot stop it.
Oh, what's up, Knicks Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Knicks Morning Brew on this Wednesday, October 25th. The New York Knicks are playing tonight, starting off the season against the Boston Celtics. Celso, how you feeling, big fella?
It's game day. Oh, yeah, your boy got the jersey on. I'm going to give you a sneak peek on my X Factor. Oh, can you see the number? All right, well, I'll hold back. What's up, Jerry? What up, Phil? You guys ready?
Yes, sir. Ready to rock.
When this headset mic comes out, you know it's time for the season. I'm just walking around the house all morning going, bang, it's good. And I swear, and we have a great show today. We have a great guest coming on. But real quick, I swear, on his own, my 2-year-old came downstairs after he woke up in the morning by himself wearing a Mitchell Robinson jersey. I didn't put it on him. My wife didn't put it on him. It's like he knew that's this is the best day of the year because we actually get Knicks basketball going on. Phil, you good? Phil looks ready.
Phil's muted.
You muted, Phil.
Yeah, the first mute of the season. All right,
Phil.
Oh, it's game day,
Phil.
Hey. I'm good. I'm in the hotel room in Georgia. Got my little plastic coffee cup. It's beautiful.
I'm about to say what's in that cup, Phil.
I was about to. You got a mimosa going on over there? It's not brunch Saturday,
I
bro.
wish,
It's still
I
the
wish
middle of
this
the week.
was like an espresso martini, but it's just cold brew and oat milk. So I'm just kind of chilling. But Jerry, we got a great guest tonight.
Yeah, we got some business.
Great game. So
we got some business to get to. I've had the pleasure of talking to our guest before in the past, and obviously we've talked Knicks and hoops, and even talked a little NBA 2K. But he's one of my favorite writers. He's the Knicks beat writer for The Athletic. He also has an amazing podcast called The Tampering Podcast. We're going to bring on Fred KATZ, everybody.
Oh, yeah. Fred's in the building. What up, Fred?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here,
brother.
Fred, I have to ask you a quick thing, right? So for us, you see, we're so pumped up. It's like Christmas Eve. Like we know the present is coming. You know, for you, do you have that same excitement? Obviously, you're probably a little excited, but also, you know, you're coming at it from a professional angle and not just a super fan. So what's it like for you on the day of opening night?
I'm like, summer break is over. That's how I feel. You know, like August, once you get to like mid-July, because the like we don't get weekends, we don't get holidays. Like right. Christmas is a crazy work day for me because the Knicks play at noon every single year and everybody's watching and I gotta write about it and so much stuff. It's like huge day in the NBA. So like, you know, we don't get any of that stuff. So I get to enjoy my like mid/end of July until September. And then training camp starts and it's a little bit of a rev up. And this really always feels like the first day of school to me. But if school were really, really fun and you like only played
right.
for the
if you like school,
team.
If you like school.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the first day of school if you just really, really liked school. So it's you know, it's really fun to do absolutely nothing with your life. That's honestly my true mission was like I was put on this planet to be the most unproductive human being who ever walked it.
Nice.
But you know, look, I have the only job where you won't get fired for watching basketball in the office. So I'll very much, I'm very, I have a lot of gratitude for that one.
Sign me up. That's a great
for sure.
And I can tell you right now, I've got 4 kids that will never agree that anything is like school. All right. Right now, they hate school to a passion. So congratulations on.
Well, I'm mad at my kids because I used to go to that Knicks Christmas Day game all the time. It was my own little Christmas tradition. Because Christmas Eve is always the big holiday in my family. But now with kids, there's 0% chance that I'll ever be back. But also, this Christmas is going to be crazy because there's NBA, there's NFL this Christmas. This Christmas Day is going to be like a solar eclipse of sports going on. But, you know, you said you're unproductive, though, Fred. That's not true because, you know, we were all talking about, I mean, you're born to be unproductive. We were all talking about the IQ extension and is it coming, is it not? Your article on covering all that, I thought was so perfect because you didn't just put it in like, here's why the Knicks didn't do it. Here's why, like you really made it like a human experience. So I guess to put a bow on the Quickly thing, and he said all the right things. I thought afterward.
100%.
Do you really feel that it's just move on, time to go play basketball? We'll deal with this in the summer.
Yeah, I kind of do, just because I don't really know what the other options are. Like, I think there are some people who they don't get their extension or they don't get a payday that they want, and they have the wrong approach to it, right? Where they're like, okay, I'm going to come out and I'm going to chuck like crazy now, and I'm going to, all right, I need to prove that I'm going to get paid. So now I'm going to take 16 shots a game and I'm going to hope that I average 20. The reason I don't think Quickly isn't going to do that is putting character aside. I actually just don't think those are his basketball values. Like I've talked hoops so many times with that guy, and I get that he's a ridiculously confident scorer and his shot selection is in question and all that kind of stuff. Although he's gotten way better at that over the last, his first 3 years in the league. But like when we talk basketball, the things that he gets so pumped about is he once bragged to me. He says to me after a game against Cleveland last year, it was regular season, not one of the playoff games. He says to me, "Do you see my play?" And I was like, "Which play?" I was like, "He hit a big three late in the game." I'm like, "You mean that one?" I'm thinking which one. And the fact that he said it to me was such an honor, because it means that he thinks that I am such a geek. He says, "You see my play?" I'm like, "No, which one? The three, the floater?" He says, "No, that pre-rotation I made on Isaac Okoro." And I was like, "Man, you are such a geek." Like that's the stuff that, and I am too. And I was so honored that he said that to me. But like that's the stuff that gets him hyped. That's the stuff he cares about. Like I know his favorite player is Stephen Curry, which is a good favorite player. He's maybe the most fun player ever to watch play basketball. But the guy who like he tries to model himself after is Drew Holiday. Like he reached out to Drew Holiday early in his career. He saw the way Drew Holiday defends, what a dog he is, kind of how smart of a player he is, how physical of a player he is. And you see that in Quickly's game, right? Like he's gone from being a horrible defender. I shouldn't say horrible, but just like totally undisciplined defender his rookie year to being one of the best team defenders in the entire league by his third year. And so I think he cares about the right things. And even if he comes into the season and he's like, I got to prove that I can get paid, I think the way that he believes that he'll get paid is by like playing awesome help defense and shooting 40% from three, which isn't exactly selfish or a problem for the Knicks. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. And I think having Coach Tibbs there, right, and being the only coach that IQ has been others since coming into the league, Coach Tibbs, people can say they hate him, they like him, whatever. He's going to have you prepared for every game. Those practices, legendary practices, people talk about how hard they are. So having Emmanuel Quickly, like Jerry said, the stuff that he said is the perfect things to say. This is what New Yorkers want to hear. He's more focused on team basketball. He's more focused on this team winning before getting a check. Obviously, he wants that bag. He's not only to be known, but having the demeanor to point out his teammates and the team before the bag, I think is very big. And it goes to show the culture change that's been going on in Madison Square Garden under Leon Rose.
Yeah, no question. I mean, look, it's kind of a chicken or egg thing, right? Because I do think Tibbs has contributed to the culture change, but I also think because Tibbs is the way that he is, they've brought in players who they know have to fit Tibbs, who are more amenable to that culture change. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a big believer that we talk about good coaches and bad coaches too simplistically, that there are maybe a couple of coaches, Eric Spoelstra is an unbelievable coach no matter where you put him. Greg Popovich, unbelievable coach no matter where you put him. And maybe there are a couple of coaches who are just terrible no matter where you put him. But for the most part, like the middle 25 coaches or something like that, whatever number you want to say, they're good coaches for some people and they're bad coaches for other people. And the example that I use all the time is Lionel Hollins was so great during his time in Memphis. He was perfect for that team. Those were like the grit and grind Grizzlies with Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol and Mike Conley and Tony Allen. And they would just get up all into you and they were so physical. And those guys played like crazy for Lionel Hollins. And he implemented that grit and grind mentality that made their identity. And like, then he goes to Brooklyn and can't get through to any of those guys. Lionel Hollins was no different in Brooklyn than he was in Memphis, but Brook Lopez is a very different personality than Zach Randolph is, and he just didn't receive it. And I think Tibbs is under that category where he's a great coach for some people, and other people are just like, I can't take the intensity. I don't have the motor for this, where maybe other coaches might be able to motivate them in a different way. And the Knicks have made a very conscious decision to go out and get guys like Quentin Grimes, who has that personality type, and even like Miles McBride, who has that personality type, Jalen Brunson, who has that personality type, Dante DiVincenzo. And I think because they've done that, it's just kind of like built upon itself. You know what I mean?
Fred, if you had a nitpick on the IQ situation, like what would be the downside to us not getting that extension done? And the reason I ask is like when I read the article, you even mentioned, if a star became available next season, right, that they're going to use that bigger salary to attach to that. But like if you had to pick one thing that's really the downside to it, because again, IQ saying all the right things afterwards, and we all believe that he's going to do what he's going to do, right? But I saw all those other extensions that were done. It's like, man, his price tag was so much higher than the other guards we were seeing, right? So if you had to pick the downside to us not re-signing him, what would you really pick for that?
I would say there are two downsides to not re-signing him. Downside number one is the one that you just mentioned, where if you have him on an extension and say Joel Embiid hypothetically becomes available next summer and the Philadelphia 76ers say we want Emmanuel quickly, it's easier to trade him when he's on the extension than it is to make a sign and trade. And that's for various reasons that are so complicated in the collective bargaining agreement that it would take until tip off for me to list all of them. But just know it's more complicated. And the other way that there's downside is if Emmanuel quickly comes out here and just balls out, and let's say Orlando, which is a team with cap space and a ton of really good forwards and really good big men and is really young, says, it comes out and wins maybe 41 games this year, 42 games this year, which I think is on the high end for them, but isn't totally out of the question. And now all of a sudden Orlando says, if only we had a really good point guard, and this guy, Emmanuel quickly, could be our Jalen Brunson. And then Orlando goes out and Orlando offers him the money that he wants because they have that cap space and because he's 24 and he fits their timeline and because Paolo Banchero looks awesome and Franz Wagner looks awesome. The rest of their young core looks awesome. And Jonathan Isaac's healthy because they have a lot of really good young players and they're all massive. So they could use a point guard. Fultz has become a really solid player, but I don't know if he's like the guy moving forward. Yeah. And there are people in the league who definitely believe that there's like a Brunson sort of possibility with Quickly, where if you give him a team, he can do what he did as a starter last year when he averaged 22 points a game in those games that he filled in for Brunson. So then the Knicks are put in a position, right? Either they let him walk to Orlando or whatever that team is, or they have to pay him more than they want to pay him. And that is really what it comes down to. Now he's restricted, so they have the right to bring him back for whatever that offer is. They can exactly, but if sometimes you end up matching and it's more than what you want to pay a guy, and now you got to change something else on the roster because you're already paying Julius Randle, you're already paying RJ Barrett, you've got like Jalen Brunson's going to be extension eligible next year, and if Jalen Brunson continues on this projection, like he could be a max. You're going to get really expensive. You're paying Josh Hart $20 million a year starting next year, so like it's a lot with the finances. So that would be the downside. But there's another part of it too, where like restricted free agents tend to get squeezed, and everyone in the league is so worried about what could happen to the middle class with this new collective bargaining agreement, which I think is not going to fare well for the players. And I think that's why we saw so many extensions. We saw 15 extensions off rookie sale deals on Monday. That it's the most ever. Not a coincidence. Everybody's really afraid of what the market could be this summer. And I think agents are just kind of like trying to lock that in.
Fred, I just want to ask you, can you speak on that about the union negotiations with the players? Why won't it be favorable for the players this summer?
Yeah, I mean, trying to think of the most concise way to say this. So there are all these rules that restrict basically not just how much teams can spend now, but what they can do once they've hit a certain limit, right? So, for example, if you do a sign and trade, you're hard capped, which was what it was before. But now there are certain trade rules where, for example, starting next summer, if you take in more money than you give out on a trade, you're also hard capped. And that's what that first apron is that we hear about all the time. That's not even the second apron. That's just the first apron now. So there are a lot of teams that are going to be hard capped. And because those teams are hard capped and they wouldn't have been hard capped, then all of a sudden the total dollars spent is going to lessen. And the max guys are still going to make max money. Like if like Giannis is not going to not make max money in these conditions, you're still, because max guys are actually worth more than the max. You know, it's just that they can only pay them the max by definition.
Yeah.
And so the money is going to come out of the bottom guys. So I think what we're going to see is we're going to see mid-level guys getting down be hurt. A guy, if the mid-level exception next year is 12.5 million or whatever it's going to be, and maybe in past years, somebody who would have gotten a 16, 17, 18 million dollar a year deal, like maybe what Quickly could have ended up getting here. You know, somebody's in that range, but nobody's able to pay that. They've only got that mid-level exception to be able to spend. That guy could get bogged down to the mid-level. The mid-level also now can be used as a trade exception. So I will bet you that there are some teams who would have otherwise used the mid-level to sign somebody are now going to use it to trade for somebody. And that doesn't mean they're not using the mid-level, but what happens is that guy who was making $12 million on the other team is now making $12 million on this team. And that resource to pay a player is gone. And it's still $12 million going to the same player. So it's taking money out of the total player pot. And I think we could see less total dollars spent. However, if you're a good player, you'll probably still find a way to get a good contract. So the best thing Quickly can do is come out and have another really good season. And by the way, clean up what he did in the postseason last year, and then we'll see what happens.
I love how we started off talking about like this was school, and we literally just had a math lesson all in the same episode. That was beautiful.
I simplified that as much as I possibly could.
You really did. I understood.
I used no percentages. I used no numbers.
Yeah, and no big words. So thanks. All right, it was great.
All that, but my head was still exploding from when you said, "What if the Orlando Magic were to offer?" Because that is such a good fit, and I hope no one hears that, because it's kind of almost. I just am like, oh, that girl I used to date married that guy. That makes sense. Oh my god, what a perfect match made in heaven. Like IQ in Orlando. I don't want it. I want him in New York. But you said that, and I started thinking of the roster and the position. I'm like, oh god, yeah, this could get real tricky. Yeah. If he does what he did last year and maybe a step up, it could get real tricky, because that is a good fit and he could start right away. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm thinking about buying that jersey. I hate it. I love it and I hate it.
The team is young. They were bad last year, but they were 29 and 28 in their last 57 games. Over that stretch, they were 6th in the league in defense. Like that team, a team that young, 6th in the league in defense, and Quickly would fit in so well with them defensively because he's such a good team defender. Like Jamal Mosley is an up and coming coach.
No,
we
got to go coach. Like
people don't realize
John
it yet.
Cusack holding up the stereo. Go get our guy. Like we can't let him get away to someone else.
I have to say, I think if Emmanuel Quickly looks out his window and sees Jerry Ferrara holding up a boombox on his property,
like, I'm out.
I think his first thing is like, I'm moving to Florida.
I'm out. Go for the bad weather.
I'm not doing this.
Listening to Fred just now, I just had flashbacks to my 10th grade of high school and my math class. Horrible PTSD from that. But go ahead, Phil. I want to hear your takes on the combo.
So before I ask Fred my last 2 questions on IQ before we move on, I see Delano Steele was talking. He was chiming in the chat about how the Magic have too many guards. And since I live in Tampa and one of the brides that I worked with works for the Magic, they have a lot of guards because they haven't found a guard that actually progresses them and moves that needle. Like Suggs was kind of a bust. They expected him to be something that he never came into. They're waiting to trade him until something happens. And same with Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony is there as insurance because he's got a very similar game to Fultz, but he also, like Fultz, has injury history. So those guys are there until they can get the right guard to move forward with the forwards that they are banking on for their future. But when it comes to IQ, I had 2 questions for you, Fred. I don't know if I missed it. The first one is, was there even an offer on the table at all that they didn't agree to? Or was it just that there was no actual extension offer on the table for Emmanuel Quickly to even like consider? And then the second question, we talked about it on the last episode, and you might have a little more insight. To me, it felt like with all the acquisition of guards that we've recently gotten, like we went from having no guards to now having like a plethora of guards. I felt like the signing of Dante DiVincenzo was kind of an insurance policy, as well as adding somebody that fit Jalen Brunson. But since he is a defensive-minded guard and can also shoot and dribble similar to IQ, it didn't force the Knicks to have to make a decision by the extension that would penalize them if they didn't have a player like that moving forward. They have, Dante for the next 4 years or whatever. So it felt like if Emmanuel Quickley and them didn't come to a conclusion, they didn't feel like their arms were tied behind their back, that they had to offer something. Do you think that played any part in their decision?
I'm sure it was discussed. But to answer the first part of your question, there was definitely an offer made. It's not like the sides never spoke or anything like that. Mm-hmm. The impression that I've gotten is that they weren't particularly close. I think Quick won it a lot. That being said, the impression that I've gotten is also not that, by my estimation of lowballing, I don't think the Knicks lowballed them. I don't think the Knicks came in and were like, all right, Cole Anthony signed 3 for $39 with the team option on the last year, so you're going to do the same. I don't think it was that. I did a story in June where I polled 16 executives from around the league, trying to ask them what they think would be a fair extension for Quickley. And the vast majority of those executives who I spoke to said something between 16 and 20 million a year. I personally believe that the Knicks offer was somewhere around there. See, I've heard different numbers, so I don't want to say a specific one and find out that another one was actually their final one, because I'm sure they spoke about a million different scenarios. But I think their general gist of the Knicks offers was somewhere in there, 16 million a year to 20 million a year. To me, that's not a lowball offer. That's a real offer, Quickly just believes he's better than that. He might be. It's possible he comes out here and just averages 18 a game, becomes a better on-ball defender, becomes a better facilitator, better in the pick and roll, is somebody who we don't say is one of the best bench players, is that dude is a starter on 15 teams. It's possible that happens this year. And I'm sure he's a ridiculously confident guy. So I'm sure he believes that that's what's going to happen. For what it's worth, when I talk to people within the Knicks, they all expect him to be better this year. Nobody expects him to come back and have the same season. And I haven't really gotten any sort of negative vibes about his playoff run. I don't think there are people there who are super concerned about him as a playoff player moving forward just because he struggled offensively in the playoffs last year. So I do expect him to be better, just because everybody who's around him says they expect him to be better, and he's 24. So, why not? But I just think they couldn't get that close. I think Quick was like, I want a huge payday, and I think I'll deserve a huge payday after this year. And he's a good enough player to where he can say that with just being confident and not being cocky,
Yeah, and it sucks because it's such a catch-22, because at the same time, it's a good problem to have. You've got the sixth man on our bench who's producing the way he does and betting on himself, and we all believe in him and think he's great. It's a really good problem to have. Most other teams would love to have an IQ. So 100%. He's betting on himself to get that bag next year. You can't, knock him for that. But at the same time, it's if he even has a better season this year, then that's a bigger headache we're all dealing with in the off season. But I want to see the better season. Let's get the better season done, and then we readdress it again next season.
So it's a win-win scenario. It's a win-win scenario no matter what. Like Fred said, if IQ comes out averaging 18 to 19 points coming off the bench, that just makes our team a whole lot better. Yeah, we may have to address the money situation in the offseason, but it's going to mean the team is performing better. And who knows, he's going to be raising his value to a point that a team may want to offer some or include IQ in a package for that superstar that everybody keeps talking about is coming to the Knicks.
Yeah, I mean, on top of that, the Knicks' opinion could change. I remember beginning of last year, IQ, they've shown they can change their opinion on IQ, because at the beginning of last year, they were legitimately trying to trade him. I spoke to numerous teams around the league who told me the exact same story of conversations that they had with the Knicks, that the Knicks were making calls on IQ, not that people were calling the Knicks about IQ, that the Knicks were making calls on IQ, and that they were trying to get back a good first-round pick for him. I don't think they ever got close on a trade. It never really happened. They never got the offer they wanted. They weren't going to do it for a top 16 protected first or anything like that. It had to be a really good pick. And I don't think they ever had any real traction there. But their intentions to trade him if they got what he wanted, if what they wanted were there. And then December, he just catches fire. And all of a sudden, he is playing for sure the best basketball of his life. And that just doesn't change for like 4 months, right? And come February, and it's the trade deadline, I know there are teams that spoke to the Knicks in like November about IQ who circled back leading up to the deadline. Okay, we're still interested in Emmanuel Quickley. What are you guys thinking? And all of a sudden, that first round pick is the price tag is like, no. And those teams that called back that had gotten the feeling of, oh yeah, he's very gettable if we just give them what they want. Those teams who called back then got the impression of like, okay, this isn't even worth negotiating over. Like, I don't even know what their asking price. Not that he's untradeable, because like only like LeBron is untradeable, but what it's not even worth negotiating, because I don't know what their asking price is even going to be. Like, we're not even going to get that far because the Knicks are just like, we like him so much. He's so important to us. We're not doing it. So they've shown they can change their opinion. And the reason I mention this is because if he comes out and he shoots 40 from 3 and he gets better defensively, and he's already really good off the ball, but he gets even better on the ball defensively, and you know, his patience in the pick and roll grows and all that kind of stuff. He just becomes a better player. And the Knicks might be the ones who are like, yeah, we'll pay you 120, because the Knicks could be like, yeah, you know what? You were right. You're deserving of it. You just showed us that you got way better. So we'll pay you that because now we think you're worth it. So I'm not ruling that out either.
Yeah. Instead of a boombox, it's a Brinks truck.
Yeah.
They're sitting out in front of his house. And it's like, here you go. We were wrong. Welcome back.
Then he might say.
Yeah, and you know, I was smiling while you were talking, Fred, because for so many years we've been on the wrong side of these situations where we were either trying to get the asset and overpaid, and that asset came and maybe it was a little long in the tooth, or time was up, or you know, we gave up too soon on an asset, or just didn't have any assets in general. So we've been on the wrong side of those things for so long, but I do feel like for quite a while now, and maybe it is a little more of the conservative approach. We saw it with Donovan Mitchell and not necessarily making that trade. Who said no? You'd probably know better than me, but I do feel like for the first time, not for the first time, but consistently now for a few years, you could credit Leon Rose or the whole organization. Smart moves are being made, because when you were talking about what IQ could be worth once he started playing, well, my mind went to OG Anunoby and the ridiculous request of like 4 unprotected first. Like, ridiculous. If we said that for Quickley when he was playing well, I'm happy. Good. Ask for the moon, settle for the stars. Wonderful. So I was just smiling because it's just nice to finally be in that position where we have tons of assets, both players and draft capital. And it really feels like we're setting the market of what we would want if there's any deals to be made. And if it's not there, they're willing to let it go. So as a fan, I'm pretty thrilled. I'm pretty thrilled. And I do think that the Brinks truck will be coming for Quickley and the Knicks. That's my hope.
So guys,
you were going another way when you said OG Anunoby. I thought you were going to say that. I thought you were projecting a midseason trade.
No, I was more saying, I just remember when his name was floated around and the crazy asking prices that you were hearing. And it's like, we're always the team that's potentially going to be giving the crazy asking price. And maybe for the first time with Quickley, that's the sign of good things to come. Like, we were sitting in the position of, here's a crazy asking price. So don't even bother.
That Anunoby asking price was a real thing. There are people around the league who were like, they asked me for my Hulu password.
That's hilarious. Go ahead, so.
Well, I was going to say, it wouldn't be Knicks content if we didn't have a week where we have to talk about some sort of crazy reporting. I know we've all saw the Joel Embiid thing. They're talking Randall, RJ Barrett, Jerry's favorite Fournier, Mitchell Robinson, and 3 first-rounders. Fred, why would this leak now? Do you think it was leaked from the team? Like, how realistic is an offer like that? Where are we at with this whole thing?
Okay. First, as a reporter, journalistically, I have to say I have not confirmed this report.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will also say the reporter who reported it, Keith Pompey of the Philly Inquirer, is a really great beat reporter and has been covering the Sixers forever. and is so on the pulse, and he doesn't just like throw stuff out. Like he's not like a shit stirrer, you know. He doesn't just throw stuff out there. Yeah. Like he's a real reporter. He's good. And so I put some equity in it. I mean, it's been the biggest open secret in the league that the Knicks we all know the Knicks are waiting on a trade for a star. And it's been the biggest open secret in the league that the Knicks are waiting on Joel Embiid. And now that Giannis has extended, he's off the table. Yeah. You know, Karl Anthony Towns is, you know, a name that's been associated with, you know, Leon Rose for a long time because he was his agent and all of that. Joel Embiid's the better player. Joel Embiid's the reigning MVP. So I'm not surprised by it at all. In order to trade for Joel Embiid, you're very much going to have to give up good players and good draft picks. I am not surprised by it in the least. I also can tell you that I don't think the Knicks expect Embiid to become available during the regular season. And I don't think, like, I haven't heard anybody in the league who's explicitly told me that they expect Embiid to become available during the season. People think that if it ever happens, it won't happen until next summer at the earliest. And as for why it came out now, I have no idea. People love playing the guessing game about why stuff came out. People do it all the time when I report stuff, and they're always wrong. Like, I've never seen.
Well, there's a take floating around. I just got texted this take. I'm sure you heard it. I'm not going to reveal this person's name just in case they don't want to be associated with said take. But it's like a smoke signal if you really want it to be in the Karl Anthony Towns business, right? It's like, okay, here's what we would trade for Embiid, potentially. So now if you're going to look at KAT, it's less than that. It's got to be less than that, right? Because Embiid's a better player, so it's got to be less than that. Are we real? Is that really the level of gamesmanship are we playing? And then also, if you're a player's, I don't know. I was on a TV show for a long time. I've been negatively reviewed. There's been talks about like, oh, maybe they're going to replace this that shit hurts. So if you're one of these players, and I'm not in the NBA, by the way, and I'm definitely not making a Brinks truck like these guys, so maybe it eases the feelings. But, you know, if you're one of those names that was thrown out there, that's got to kind of suck, right? I don't know. Or maybe they just like they're used to it.
Yeah, I think it depends on the player. I think there are some players who definitely get affected by that stuff. And there are some players who are better at tuning out. Like, I think RJ is pretty good at tuning stuff out. But look, like Evan Fournier admitted completely going into last year that the trade rumors with Donovan Mitchell got to him. Like because Evan Fournier is incapable of not saying what's on his mind. So he just fully admitted.
So is Jerry. They're like, that's why they have that connection.
Clown.
Even Fournier, they're biffles.
I'm still hopeful Fournier is going to prove to be a decent Knick, Fred. So keep going, though. Keep going.
It's a hell of a hope.
Fred, I'll go right back to you. I just want to say, we got 35 people in the building. If you guys can, please smack that button as we continue the conversation with our guy, Mr. Fred KATZ. Go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, no, I think it can affect people. Yeah, I just think it's impossible to really predict which ones it's going to affect and which ones it's not going to affect. I also think that players have a little bit of a different reaction when it's like, oh, they would trade this guy for the MVP. You know what I mean? Like Jerry, I bet you would have had a different reaction if they were like, you know what? We're actually going to bring in Daniel Day-Lewis to play Turtle.
That's fair. Fair. I get it.
I bet you would have been like, God, that sucks. I'm going to be out of a job. But like, this dude's going to be method acting as Turtle at the local CVS.
I would respectfully step away and try and find another job right away.
right. Like, it would be a little different. So I do think when it's like, okay, they would trade me for Joel Embiid. Like, oh, okay, that means that I'm pretty good if I'm a major part of a Joel Embiid trade. Right. So I do think it's different with that than the stuff that you hear maybe like last year with Quickly, where it's like they're trying to trade him for a first. They're trying to unload him. Like, I do think that players will put that stuff in perspective a little bit different.
Do you guys, and I'm asking everybody, including Fred, do we think that if that offer was real, is that too high? Is it just about right? Are we
I'll
in
say
crazy
just about
town
right.
if we said, here you go? Like, the reason
What
I
was it?
ask is
RJ, Randall, Fournier, and
Mitch,
and three first, but not all our own first, right? Like
Yeah.
one or two, or four,
I think the report was 3 out of those 4, though, right? Like it wasn't all of them. It was 3 out of those 4.
3 out of the 4.
Well, including Mitch is only natural because what's the point
Can't
of
play
Mitch if
together.
you're having Embiid? Fournier would only be there for salary reasons. And then it's either sorry, Jerry. And then it's either
Jerry's not gonna live it down, Jerry.
Almost got a spit take out of me right there. Morning brew coffee, almost all on the camera.
It's a shame. Evan Fournier is a good dude and a great interview, and is so helpful with my job. And it's a lot better when guys are a great interview. A lot better for me. Guys who are thoughtful, smart, like honest people play, and I can talk to them. That's a lot more fun. But yeah, Fournier would be for the money. Mitch would just make no sense on the team positionally anymore. You're not paying that much money for that quality of a starting center to be your backup when Hartenstein's already one of the best backup centers in the league. Yeah. And then you're choosing between RJ and Julius. And, RJ would make a lot of sense. He's a young player who'd be going over there. Quickly would make sense to be included in a deal. It's also like, it's Joel Embiid. He's better than all of the people we're talking about. He's better than everyone save for like a couple of people in the league. He's a top 5 player, top 7 player, whatever you want to say. You do what you can to get it done. It also, like Jerry alluded to, it depends on what kind of picks they're including. And it's also going to depend on if we get to a world where Embiid is available, and if we get to a world where the 76ers are negotiating with the Knicks, it's going to depend on what the Sixers want back. Do they want players? Like the Sixers might be like, we don't want Julius Randle. We're tearing this whole thing down now that we're trading Embiid. Keep Julius Randle, put him next to Embiid, and give us all of the picks. Give us the 4 first-round picks of your own that you can trade, and give us 3 of the other ones. And we want, 6 first-round picks, and we want 3 or 4 of them protected, and that's how we want this. And give us quickly, and then use Fournier for money and use somebody else for money or whatever. But we'll figure that out. And maybe that's what the 76ers say. So it really depends on it's not just how good the package is sometimes. It's what are the priorities of the people you're negotiating with.
And Mitchell Robinson's contract is very team friendly. If I'm not mistaken, I think last year was the most that he was going to make per season, and it goes down progressively like 1 or 2 million. So at the end, the last year of his contract, I think he's going to be making only 11 to 12 mil.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, it's a good. I didn't like that deal when they signed it. I was definitely wrong. Like it's a good contract. He had a really awesome year last year. He was incredible in that Cleveland series. He's a good starting center. He's now that Steven Adams is out for the year, I think him and Steven Adams are the 2 best offensive rebounders in the league, and now I think we can say he's going to be the best offensive rebounder in the NBA this year. Like he's got a lot of really good traits. He's super important for them. But yeah, it would just depend on what Philly wants.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Oh, it's just been so long since we've made a blockbuster, probably since Melo, right? Brunson now feels like a blockbuster.
Jerry.
At the time he wasn't.
Jerry, don't forget the Fournier sign-in.
Listen, Fred, 2 years ago on opening night versus these very Boston Celtics, Evan Fournier put up like 38 points. All right, God, you guys did it to me. I hate it. It's pissing me off so much. Fred, I get it. I get it. Tibbs is only going to play 8-9 guys. I get it. But what the Knicks, to me, need the most to just go off of what they did, they need to do what they did last year. Guys need to take incremental improvements, and they need shooting. I get that Evan Fournier defensively is a mess, but I just run him out there. He can't give you 12 minutes. See if he could shoot 2 for 5 from 3. Pull him out of the game. That's all I'm saying. But now I'm all of a sudden like his #1 fan. I'm going to get a jersey.
Jerry, I know you've seen the movie Mean Girls, right? You're trying to make Fetch happen, Gretchen. Fetch is not going to happen. Right?
You know what? You've seen the movie Groundhog's Day, right? Because
I've seen them all, Phil. I've seen them all.
I've seen them all. Episode all over again.
I was going to say, you guys better duck if he gets 8 minutes tonight and shoots 3 for 3 from downtown.
Yeah, I'm turning my phone on
mute
silent.
me because I'm going to. You're not going to hear the end of it.
I want to ask you.
I think
fellas,
Fournier
because-
can still play for what it's worth.
I do. I really believe it. I really believe it. I'm not saying
But I don't
30
know.
minutes.
I don't know if it's gonna work here though.
Mhm.
I just there's something with the environment right now, and we saw all he talked about over the summer.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's just not a good situation for him.
No.
It's just not. So I don't know if it's going to work here, but I would be totally unsurprised if he went to another team on a cheaper contract or took a buyout or got traded or something and started playing and averaged 16 a game for them and shot 40 from 3 or whatever. That wouldn't surprise me. He's not old.
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys
30.
what is more realistic for the season? Evan Fournier can average 6 to 8 minutes per game, or because I went to Empire Casino to the sports book, they got the Knicks under 45 wins. So I'm going to ask you guys, what is more realistic? The Knicks winning more than 45 games, or Evan Fournier getting 6 to 8 minutes a game?
Knicks more than 45 games.
Yeah,
I'll take that all day.
Well, unless they're changing coaches, Fournier ain't gonna average 8 minutes. You saying average 8 minutes a game?
6 to 8 minutes a game.
Barring if there's no injuries. I don't know. There's no way that happens.
That's crazy.
He will average 6 to 8 minutes a game.
You think so?
Yes, because he's going to play in like 16 games when guys are hurt. And on the nights that guys are hurt and he has to fill in,
The DMPs don't count against his record.
right? He'll play like 15.
Facts.
And then when they're at full throttle, he'll just never play. So he will average more than 6 to 8. So even though I actually think the Knicks will win more than 45, I'll take Fournier.
It was like a trick question, Fresno, on that call. That was good because I was like, oh, that's a good way to put it. You average the games he played. Before we obviously jump into some of the Celtics talk for the night's game, guys, I've got a serious topic, and I'm going to throw the question, goes to everybody on here. Chat, I want your answers as well. We'll start with Fred. Who's copping Skechers? Come on now. Guys, I'm starting to fall in love with these Skechers. I don't know if I'm just sold on Julius right now, but anybody buying themselves look at those things. Look at them.
I'm in.
Oh,
I'm in.
I'm in 100%, especially if it means Embiid and Julius Randle in the Garden. I'm in. Count me in.
Fred, you got your Skechers yet?
I think it's cool. Like, it's the first time I never thought I would say I think Skechers are cool.
Right?
I never.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge sneaker guy. But I was talking about it with Julius, and Julius really sold me on it. And the reason why is because he was talking about how like part of the appeal to him was how like he's going to be so involved with the process, and he's going to get to like be involved in building things there, and like, you know, with Nike, he was one of many there. Whereas with Skechers, like he's really going to be in at the ground level and be able to help create something, and how cool of an opportunity he thought that was. And I was like, that's awesome that that's the way he's thinking. Like that's such a cool approach, such a cool way to think of you know, this business. And so I'm in on it. I think it's awesome for him.
Yeah.
And they signed what?
Go ahead, Phil.
Go ahead,
Phil.
Phil. I was gonna say because they signed what, Terrence Mann to Skechers, and then there's the rumors Embiid and Julius.
They did sign Embiid. They did sign
Embiid is
Embiid,
official with Skechers.
and
Embiid's
I don't think they're
come.
done. I don't think they're done.
Embiid's got to come then. They both wear the Skechers. It'll be great. Like, I made some jokes about like Skechers or whatever. I don't have a problem with them being Skechers. I just think the green ones are hideous. I couldn't wear those. But I like the colorway of the white, pink, and whatever ones. But what I do like about it is what you're saying, Fred. Like when you know the actual story and the reasoning behind it, you know, it's kind of like when I was younger when, you know, Shaq first came out with the Shaqs. You were like, oh, those are like Walmart shoes. But then when he like talked about it, like, oh, I'm making shoes that can be sold at Walmart because I don't come from the Nike, you know, financial bracket when I was a kid. You know, I wouldn't have been able to afford those sneakers. So I wanted to make sneakers that were affordable for people that live the way that I lived growing up. You know, so the story made you want to be like, yo, I'll wear a pair of Shaqs, you know, for that reason alone. You know, so it's very similar to that, like knowing that Julius gets to be on the ground floor and kind of like they bought into him before it was cool to buy into an athlete. You know, that's something to be like, I was one of the first, you know, so I salute my hat off to him for that for sure.
Well, I'll tell you guys right now, the chat is, let's see, we got the DSJ, only Jiggaman is buying those highlight Skechers.
I got them
I ain't
already.
wearing those skibbity toilets. I'll pass on the Skechers. Oh, all right. I can buy 2 pairs and wear both
Couldn't
of them.
disagree
All
with the chat more for the first time. I'm buying.
Right?
Same.
I'm in.
Same.
I'm in.
For a couple of reasons. Number one, we saw what Steph Curry did, right, with Under Armour. Who was rocking Under Armour sneakers to play basketball? No one. So Julius Randle goes out and has a good season again, makes another All-NBA. They will sell. I'm with all of you. The story is what's up. But here's the thing where you get me. And I think I'm known as a sneakerhead. And look, there's sneakers you wear for style. But the one search I have been on for years now and kind of unsuccessful, and that's why I'm going to give these a run. Actual playing shoes. I don't play as much pickup anymore because I'm 44 and I'm an Achilles injury away from it's like a ticking time bomb. But that being said, I have a real hard time putting on a lot of different sneakers to play. I think they're either all uncomfortable or slippery or blisters. So I'm going to rock them to my Sunday pickup game. If they feel good, if I shoot like Evan Fournier, if I go 2 for 5 from 3, they're in the rotation. So I'm trying them out because I actually want to see how they feel to do athletic things with them. And I want to support Julius Randle. Good for him.
For me, I like the fact that, and I've been listening to Julius Randle talking about it, that they talk about the accessibility of how affordable it could be for certain families out there. I myself, I come from living in the projects, Section 8, welfare. So I come from a very impoverished background. So as a kid growing up, I brought the Stephon Marburys because I could afford a $30 pair of sneaker. I couldn't afford $150 for a pair of Jordans. So the fact that they're making it affordable with Skechers, to me, is the biggest takeaway, because nowadays, sneakers, the minimum you're paying is $150 to $200. If you want to get your kid an AAU, you got to pay the AAU fees on top of whatever gear they're wearing on their feet. So it's just making it more accessible to people who wouldn't be able to afford it. And also, I'm ordering mines with the Heelys. I need the Heelys on mine for my Skechers when I order.
All right. So
Julia says they're comfortable.
Yeah.
So Jerry, you gotta try them out.
I'm in. I'm ordering them right as
the one question is Skechers is going in with big men, and normally big men aren't really selling sneakers. It's the guys who sell sneakers are wings, right? Like you want to get or guards. You want to get the PGs. You want to get the KDs. Why does KD always lie and say that he's 6'9" when we all know he's 6'11" or 7 feet or whatever it is? It's because he wants to be listed as a small forward, and he has never said this publicly at all. But I've always assumed that the reason why is because he's going to sell way more sneakers as a small forward than he is as a 7-footer. That's always how it works. There's never really been a sneaker that's blown up for a big guy. Like you don't wear them. Like I find, like, for example, like I used to have a pair of LeBrons to play in, and like, it's a cool sneaker, but I just didn't think they were very comfortable. Like my shoes would, the bottom of my soles, like I have big feet. So I was like, I'm going to try them out. But the bottom like of my feet would be so sore. And it's because it's made for someone who is slightly more powerful than I am. And it's just like, you know, like the PGs are so light, the Kyries are so light. Like
those are my two favorite shoes to play in, the Kyries and the PGs.
Yeah, and so we'll see. But Julius is going to have a hand, I think, in like designing these, putting them together, making them accessible. So I really wonder how he's going to go about it. And I think it's a really, really cool opportunity for him. And I think it's an awesome decision that he made.
And then in 2023, the nostalgia factor, like nostalgia is crazy. People buy into nostalgia. So if you have Skechers to be that nostalgia sneaker from the late 90s and 2000s, these Gen Z kids will buy it just because of that factor alone.
Yeah, that's true.
Make me feel so old.
Yeah. Wait, does anyone know though which player when
LeBron? You said nostalgia, I thought you were going to say from the 1930s.
No,
you're like, oh yeah, nostalgia from 2007.
Yeah. Who's got the number one shoe? Does anyone know? Like selling wise,
I'll look it up right
current
now.
player it's probably LeBron, right?
I mean, technically, it's still Jordan.
Right, but I'm saying currently active player, like it probably was Kobe when he was playing, right? Probably.
Yeah, I mean, Kobe's still sell off the show.
Kobe still. Oh yeah, but I wonder who took the mantle over as current active player. It's gonna be LeBron. Just
Hector's on it. He's got that.
Sorry, do the deep dive. I don't want to derail us.
Deep dive,
no, as of right now,
might be Kyrie for what
it just. For right now, it just says Nike, but they have Kobe Bryant as number one. Kobe's Pro 6 is the number one seller, and then Jordans are right underneath it. And then it's Kyrie Irving and then LeBron James. So Kyrie is the number one active seller for sneakers right now.
Kyrie above
Well,
LeBron.
I just pulled up an article from Complex that came out. According to, it was like March, April, the LeBron 20s were the current selling, followed by the Nike Ja 1s.
Listen,
So
I'm one of the few people in this world who own the Karl Malone LA Catapults. That's how old I am. Look it up online. Go ahead, all you kids out there, look it up. LA Gear made them. So
I used to rock the Hirachis also growing up, but I twisted my ankle in every pair I wore, so I stopped buying them.
Guys, where else can you tune in the morning, have a coffee, talk Skechers? But while we still have Fred, I need to know, bro, for you, who is the player that you think needs to be the X factor for our season this year?
I'm gonna go Quentin Grimes. He's the fifth starter. Man, you had that graphic fast.
I'm ready.
People are gonna think we prepared.
We did not
this.
talk before. We did not talk before.
Good. Either I just gave the most obvious answer ever, or you guys
just
are
quick. We're just ready.
No, I'm gonna say Quentin Grimes. I mean, it's the fifth starter. I think he's so important to their season. Like Jerry said, there's just not a lot of shooting in that starting lineup, and they were really good offensively last year. It's the same starting lineup that they're bringing back, and that's really the only starting lineup they've ever had in the Tibbs era that's been legitimately good. They outscored opponents by 7 points per 100 possessions when those five were on the floor together, which is a really, really quality number. But they need Grimes's spacing, especially against teams that are going to just collapse into the paint against them. It's going to be so unbelievably important. And if you look at the way that Miami defended them during the playoffs, it was like every single time Brunson got inside the three-point arc, defenders were collapsing in on him. He was getting swarmed. Same thing with Julius Randle. And the Knicks were third in points per possession last year. Like, they were really good offensively. They found ways to score in spite of their lack of shooting. They got to the line a ton. Their shot selection was really good. Jalen Brunson had an incredible year. They got a ton of offensive rebounds. They didn't turn the ball over. They won the possession game. Like, they did all the nitty gritty stuff on offense that you kind of need to get away with the lack of 3-point shooting. And they took a lot of threes too, which really helped a lot because it brings up the math. But what they need from Grimes is really to give them space, not just by shooting 40 or close to 40% from three, like he did last year, also from movement. Like, I think what we saw from Evan Fournier during his first season with the Knicks, and I'm saying this completely.
No, I know you're. I know
ironically.
it's so true. It's so true.
Fournier was, he got a lot of crap in his first season with the Knicks, but it's not just that he broke the franchise 3-point record during that season. He was relentless moving off the ball. Like, you could watch any Knicks offensive possession, right? And he was just scampering around screens and pin downs and flares and whatever, and getting himself open. Was so good at reading the game. If Grimes can get, like, that's obviously in Tibbs' playbook.
Yeah.
Fournier did it for an entire season. If Grimes can get to that point as an off-ball mover, as a cutter, and I do think that's in the cards, and he worked out with JJ Redick all off season. And part of the reason why wasn't just because he knows that Redick was a great shooter. It's because he was so impressed with Redick's conditioning, which was notoriously ridiculous when he was playing, because he constantly was moving on offense. He would exhaust defenses. If Grimes can get to that point, and by the way, take another step as a on-ball defender, which is going to be tremendously important for them because they use him on the other team's best perimeter player no matter what. Like, he'll guard Trae Young and he'll guard Pascal Siakam, and I think he's better against guards just because he's like 6'4". But if he can get stronger, looking more physical, not necessarily get bullied by the 6'8" guys that he has to guard because that's the way the Knicks are constructed, that's so important for them. Then maybe all of a sudden that first unit's even better. Or maybe you can slot him in with the second unit or certain other kinds of lineups where he works really well. And that's needless to say of any of the other parts of his game that he's worked on. He had that preseason game against the Celtics where he hit 3 threes off the dribble, where it's like, okay, like, is this a thing that's in the arsenal right now? Like, I just think he's really important, and he's in the season right now that Quickly was in last year, where he's going to be extension eligible next summer, the same way Quickly was this summer and RJ was the summer before. So he's got some financial motivation here too. So I am I'm very curious to see what kind of season he has. I think he's really important for them. And if he takes a big step, that's huge for them.
Do you guys think, and sticking on Grimes for a second, because I saw a lot of people on the timeline over the last week or so, a lot of talks of people pushing for Grimes to be with that second unit. Does that make sense to you, Fred? And then I want to kind of go around on that one.
No, I would definitely start him. Right. I mean, first unit was really good last year. Why mess with that? And they need that spacing. And I think he's the best 3-point shooter on the team. Like, I know DiVincenzo hit 40 from 3 last year. He had a really good shooting season. I think Grimes' 3-point shot is more consistent. And it just kind of shocks me that he's never gotten over 40. I know it's only been 2 years. I know he's young. I'm just waiting on him to shoot 40 from 3. Like, that's happening. It's going to happen. He has a beautiful jump shot. He's going to shoot 40 from 3, and he takes high volume. He's willing to have a quick trigger. Sometimes he goes a little too fast. I think that's what hurts him. Sometimes he catches and he immediately rushes. He doesn't need to. He can just go through his progression and go up because he thinks very quickly. Moves very quickly. He's a very smart player. So I'm just waiting on him to shoot 40 from 3. If he can take like 7 threes a game as a starter this year and hit 40%, that is so important for that starting lineup. And I know that's obviously a really big number. I also just don't think that's unrealistic for him at all.
Yeah, and I think him working with JJ Redick is going to really show, because JJ Redick was the type of 3-point shooter that, yes, he's a catch and shoot guy, but he can move without the ball to find himself to get open in order to knock down a shot. And I think that's what Quentin Grimes needed last year. So going into this season, that's what I'm going to be looking at. How is he moving without the ball?
Yeah, and Grimes, here's why I think Grimes is going to be able to do that too. Because there are some guys who are awesome shooters, but they're just not good with moving without the ball. And there's some guys who are great moving without the ball and they can't shoot. They're not, it's not like one trait makes you good at the other and vice versa. The most important trait you need to be moving good to, you need to be good at. The most important thing you need to be good at in order to move well without the ball is you need to be ridiculously well conditioned, because you need to be able to catch people asleep while you still have energy. And that's the most important thing. The second most important thing that you need is just general basketball intelligence. And the reason why I feel like Grimes has that, look at the way he attacks closeouts. One of the things, I had a really interesting conversation with him last year where there's so many times where he will get a swing pass or a kick out or something, and a defender will rush to close out on him because defenses really respect his shooting, and he will attack and just blow by the guy. And there's this stat on Second Spectrum called blow by rate, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's how often a dribbler drives by his defender. And there was a point during the season last year when I noticed like Grimes would just blow by his defender every time somebody tried to run him off the 3-point line. And so I hit up, I don't have Second Spectrum access. So I hit these like only for the teams. And so I hit up a dude who works in analytics for a team. And I was like, can you look up a stat for me? I just have a feeling that Quentin Grimes leads the league in blow by rate. And if I'm right, this is my proudest moment of my entire life, because this is the most niche sentence anyone's ever said. Like, you guys are trying to predict over or under 45 wins. And I'm like, who leads the league in blow by rate? and so this person is like, holy crap. I looked it up. You're right. Grimes leads the league. So I went and I talked to Grimes about it. And I was asking him, like, what are you doing? What are you looking at? And he says when a pass comes in, what he's looking at is the defender's feet. And he wants to see which way the feet and the hips are angled. And if they're angled a little bit to the left, then he knows he's going that direction. If they're angled a little bit to the right, he knows he's going that direction. And then he just goes. And if the guy's not close enough to him, then he looks to the hoop. Being able to go through that read is not that much different than coming around a pin down, seeing that the guy is supposed to guard you got hung up on the pin down, and then saying, okay, well, now I have 2 reads on this, right? Like I can go to the wing, or I can curl around and get it at the elbow. And like, that's what Redick was amazing at. That's what like Bradley Beal is amazing at. Klay Thompson is amazing at. It's the same trait. That's the same sort of quick recognition, same sort of read, same sort of intelligence. So I think Grimes can do it. He's just young. It takes it takes some time. But I think he can get there, and I think we could see him be a really, really good and relentless off-ball player.
Yeah. And so for all the reasons you said is why I would consider him in the second unit. Solely because I feel like he is the player. He was my X factor as well, like very similar to you. And the reason for me is I feel like there is such a high ceiling that we have not seen from him. And I don't know if we will see that in the starting lineup with as many touches as Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, and Julius Randle get. Because he's great off ball, but he's also great on ball, like as a facilitator. Like he has those skill sets. And I feel like with the first unit, I feel like a lot of his shots get rushed because he's used to being in a rushed position. Like if you look, a lot of times when he gets the ball, it's within 3 seconds left on the clock. Yes, there's those times where he's wide open and he should have hit it anyway. But a lot of the times when he gets it is with 3 seconds left on the clock when Jalen, RJ, or Julius did not get their shot, and he's having to throw it up. And I think that's what he's used to, is unless he's like watching the clock, he's assuming I'm getting it with a little bit of time left to try and nail this 3-point shot. As opposed to if he was coming in with the second unit, he would be more of that guy that they rely on for the scoring. He would be going up against subpar defenders in a second unit compared to the elite defenders that he's going against in the first unit. So I feel like he would have more touches and more opportunities with the second, even though he is probably my favorite player right now on the Knicks, because I feel like he's got that biggest, room to grow. And I would like to see him for the longevity of his career stay a Knick. But I feel like he's not getting opportunities unless Tibbs does something that shocks me this season and says, hey, we're actually going to run plays for Quentin Grimes. Instead of just Grimes shoot it if you have the shot, actual plays that would be focused around Grimes. If we don't see that, I feel like he would thrive in that second unit.
I think that's reasonable. I think the reason why he should continue to start, though, is because of the other side of the floor.
Yeah.
Not just because the Knicks starting unit is going to be worse if he's off the floor because he's their best perimeter defender, but also because you're wasting your best perimeter defender if you bring him off the bench. Like,
Facts.
there are very, very few bench players in the league who you just need to put your best defender on to stop.
Yeah.
If they were that good, they wouldn't be bench players. There are lots of players in the league who are so good that you need to put your best player on to stop them. And that's the value in starting a guy like that. Like I remember when I covered the Thunder and Andre Robertson was a starter, even though he couldn't do anything offensively. And the reason why he was a starter was because they needed him to guard the other team's best player every single night. That was his value. And if you had him just guarding like, just a solid, nice player off the bench, it's like, well, Dante DiVincenzo can do that. Josh Hart can do that. But if you want Grimes guarding Trae Young, like who's guarding Trae Young? If you start anyone, like I guess you'd have to start DiVincenzo, I guess. But like DiVincenzo guarding Trae Young is not. DiVincenzo's a better off-ball defender than he is on-ball defender. Like Grimes is your best on-ball guy. DiVincenzo's value is getting into passing lanes, fights really hard. He's just not as athletic and as quick-footed as Grimes as a on-ball defender. And so you lose that value if you have him guarding, Shake Milton or something coming off the bench as opposed to James Harden or Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that to me is the ultimate one. It's just not the best value play. And the Knicks have so many ball handlers anyway that it's not like I would look at Grimes in the second unit and be like, okay, he's going to handle a ton if he's just put there because they still have Quickly in the second unit. They still have DiVincenzo in the second unit. I guess he would be there instead of, I guess RJ would still be playing with the second unit in this case if you just like swapped his and DiVincenzo's role or something. You still have Josh Hart there who's going to, grab defensive rebounds and just go the other way. There's always 1 to 2 possessions a game where you're like, is that Josh Hart or Giannis? like where he's just going to grab a defensive rebound. You're like, why doesn't he do that every time? Like, why is he not the best player ever? Just grabbing a defensive rebound and getting a layup every damn time. So like they have other ball handlers. So while he definitely would handle the ball more in the second unit, I don't think it would be so much more to where it would offset all the other things that he brings to the first unit that are so important.
Awesome.
Are you in the building tonight, Fred? I imagine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So all right, I'll ask you this before we let you go, and then also I just need the time to click by now and go get to this game. Most compelling storyline tonight. I'm not going to ask you for predictions. I'm going to ask you for the most compelling storyline. We got IQ coming off all the contract drama. We have the Nova Knicks live at Madison Square Garden. We have KP back in the building after all these years. New look Celtics with Drew Holiday. What's the story that you feel most compelled to watch? I mean, you're going to watch them all, but what do you think is the most compelling story tonight as the Knicks battle the Celtics and Evan Fournier gets 6 minutes?
Yo, Fournier killed the Celtics
2 years ago.
Every time.
I bet over
Every time.
15.5 points. He had it in almost the first quarter.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just the first game. I think he had 3 30-point games during that first season with the Knicks.
They traded him. They got rid of him.
Yeah, all 3 were against the Celtics. I'll deviate a little bit, and I'll say the thing that I'm the most interested in is going to be Jalen Brunson versus Drew Holiday. You know, there are some people with the Knicks who are just like, dude, this is not the peak of Jalen Brunson.
Fred, they're really going to think we work together behind the scenes, Fred, because, I mean, bam! Bam! I'm telling you, we are in sync. We are in sync today, Fred.
Pre-production meeting.
Great production meeting, facts, Jay.
Oh, my God. You guys are like, honestly, it's a little creepy. I think I need to leave. Like, I don't know,
Mom.
I'm like looking over my shoulder. It's a little creepy. But they're people I talk to with the Knicks who are just like, no. Like what he did during that Miami series, where an awesome defense is completely swarming him as much as a defense possibly can. And he's going for 38 in game 5, 41 in game 6, and just looking incredible. After January 4th, he averaged 28 points a game on 52% shooting, 45% 3-point shooting. Like the dude went off. That was a 3-month span to end the regular season. That's not really a hot streak. It's probably too long to be a hot streak. And there are people who are around Jalen Brunson who are like, no. Like that's Jalen Brunson. And he's going up against Drew Holiday, who has a very good case as the best, not just the best defensive guard in the league, but the best defensive guard of his entire generation. And last year, if you remember, when they played the Bucks at the Garden, he went for 38 against Drew Holiday. And I kind of always thought, although he had greater lines than that one throughout last year, he had some 40-point games and all that.
Impressive.
People don't do that to Drew Holiday. Like, that doesn't happen. Like Drew Holiday is like, I would say tier 1 of the most respected player by players. Yeah. The way players talk about Drew Holiday is incredible. I mean, he's just revered by his peers because he is just a hound with the way that he guards. And I actually think it's possible that we see a better defensive Drew Holiday this year than we did even last year, because last year, Milwaukee's offense was just not very good. Chris Middleton was hurt. Giannis missed a little bit of time, and Drew has to take on this big facilitating role. And their offense finishes middle of the pack. And he's got to be a decision maker, and he's got to run the offense in a lot of ways. And because Middleton is not the same guy, late clock possessions, they're going to him for a pick and roll with 11 seconds left on the shot clock, right? Instead of Chris Middleton, there's this big offensive burden on him. And because there's this big offensive burden on him, it's just more energy that he has to put out. And now he's next to Jaylen Brown, and he's next to Tatum, and he doesn't have to do any of that stuff. And he's got Porzingis. And he's got Al Horford, who's like one of the best facilitating big men in the league. And he's got Derek White. And all he has to do is show up, run a pick and roll every once in a while, knock down threes, and just channel all of his energy into defense. Like, we've never seen Drew Holiday only channel his energy into defense because he's so good. He's such a good basketball player that teams rely on him to do other stuff. But this Boston top 6 is so insanely stacked that I could see a world where they're like, Drew, just be Marcus Smart. Like you were being Marcus Smart plus all this other stuff on offense. Now you actually just play the Marcus Smart role. And I just think there's a world where he is insanity defensively this year, even compared to what he was, the last few years. And I just called him maybe the best defensive guard of his generation. And if Jalen Brunson comes out there and torches Drew Holiday, then we're like, oh man, this could be something from Jalen Brunson this year. And look at the graphic. That's unbelievable. That's just incredible. And if Drew comes on and really shuts down Brunson, it's not going to change my opinion of Jalen Brunson, but it might be, oh man, this might be a career defensive season from Drew Holiday. So I as one of these self-proclaimed basketball geeks, I think that is going to be such a fun matchup because those dudes are also like both so smart and so crafty, and they just win on their intelligence and they win on their skill level. Like they're so skilled at their crafts. I love that matchup, and I think it's going to be really fun to watch.
The game can't get here quick enough. People in the chat, drop the orange and blue hearts for our boy Fred KATZ. Fred, thank you so much for making time this morning. We kept you over the time, so we appreciate you hanging out even longer, man. And we look forward to having you back on during the season, bro.
Yeah, I mean, more than thrilled. So I went, about 5 times longer. No, about 10 times longer than Evan Fournier is going to go tonight. So.
Fred, you're amazing, Fred.
You guys are going to want to mute me. If Fournier shoots 2 for 5 from 3 on 12
I'll turn my
Fred,
phone off if it happens.
Fred, have a great season. Hopefully the Knicks give you a good season to write about. Always look forward to everything you write and put out there on social. So, have a good year. Have a good year.
Appreciate you, Fred.
Thank you so much for having me on, guys. This was great.
Talk to you
soon.
soon.
Appreciate you, Fred. Later. See you back.
Yep.
Yeah, buddy. All right,
that was a good
fellas. One. Yeah, I mean, Fred killed
Jigga,
it.
did you talk to him? And did you do a pre-show meeting?
I don't believe
like,
you. I don't believe you.
It was kind of creepy that you were just like, I know you're the man with the graphics. You put a lot of work in. That was creepy.
It was. I prepare for every answer.
You were prepared. Right? You were well prepared.
I just got to pre-plan ahead of time, right? Like sitting here and being like, hey, I haven't even mentioned my X Factor, right? You guys all gave yours, I think, with Pito the other day, right?
Yeah. I gave Mitch.
Oh, okay. And then Jerry, you had Mitch too, right?
Yeah.
And
I
Phil,
think I had
Grimes?
Mitch as well. Yeah. Yeah.
I had Grimes.
I'm really excited for the game. Wow, I thought we stopped rolling for a minute there. So I'm a little dizzy. What time's the game? 7:30?
Oh man, I can't wait.
I'll put my kids to bed now.
Guys, I'm gonna play this real quick because I'm going with
Make the magic last more than just one night. Just get to it. I know we could break through it just one.
Julius Randle. Look, I gotta say this, Jerry. You know, and Phil and Heck, you guys, you saw as a Jets fan this season, right? In the offseason, Aaron Rodgers going all over, Fallon, doing all this stuff.
That was the best thing that happened to the Jets this year.
Yeah, well, I'm getting those vibes with Julius, man. He's on the Jimmy Fallon show. Hopefully no Achilles stuff, but
yeah,
I mean all the other stuff.
Yeah,
right?
I was about to say.
He's out and about. He's got the new sneaker contract. He's smiling. He's joking. I'm going with Julius, man. I think we've talked about it before, where I feel like we've had the on and off season, right? If you look at Julian, on, then he was off, then on last season. If this can be the one where we get the back-to-back on and we get that all-star play level again from Julius, I'm telling you guys, I'm sticking with my 52-plus wins this season, and Julius Randle will be my X Factor. Come at me, Jerry. What do you?
No, I'm with you. There's nothing left to do but to do it now.
Yeah.
Let's roll the ball out and play.
Yeah, and Julius Randle and his entire family, they're brought in when it comes to being a Knick and being in New York City. The way that his son is super passionate when it comes to watching the Knicks. He played the video on the Jimmy Fallon show of his son crying because they lost in preseason. And they said, it's preseason. I don't care. They should win every game.
He also told his father after they lost the game that he should demand a trade.
Yeah, he should demand a trade. Smart kid.
Yeah.
Phil, I gotta ask you, bro, because you're the younger brother that always, keeps me level on all of my Knicks talk. How should I be this excited about Randall?
I'm rooting for Julius. Like I have my, pros and cons of Julius, like I do everybody else. But I feel like this is the year for Julius. Like I feel like this is the year. I've said it before that moving forward, we're talking. All these stars coming. And like that trade says that came out about Embid, 3 of those players, 3 of those 4. And I think what that means is whichever team, is willing to do either RJ or Julius. Those are the factors that can be interchangeable. And so I feel like the Knicks are going to make their decisions based off of the first half of the season, like who shows up, like who are the ones to build around? Do we build around Julius Randle or do we build around RJ Barrett? So I feel like both of those guys have to play with that kind of determination. My only concern is we were talking to Fred about that rumor that came out and how some players, emotionally can just deal with things, and then some players get a little more ruffled feather-wise. I don't know how that attacks somebody like Julius Randle, who has openly admitted that, that dealing with the mental, like being able to fully focus on the game and just kind of channel your thoughts and energy has been a struggle. Like you go into the first game with talks about you are tradable, and your name is already out there. So I'm hoping that doesn't really ruffle his feathers to, affect what we see from him on the court. I'm hoping he's one of those players, like Fred said, that's able to now kind of just separate that and focus on the game that's at hand. So we'll see.
True.
Nice. Well, guys, before we wrap, Jerry, I gotta say, bro, the way you ended it with Fred, that question, that was great. Like that was very Hollywoodish, What is the storyline? Yeah, I liked it. Instead of a prediction, right? Because no one wants to do those anymore.
Well, try to put yourself in Fred's shoes, right?
Prediction after prediction after.
Well, he wants the Knicks to win. So, is he really going to get up here and say, well, I think the Celtics take it tonight? He will because he's an honest guy. But also, if you're a journalist, you're a beat writer for the Knicks. Like, you got to be going into the game I think that's what I do a lot with football. But for me, basketball is almost more interesting. What are the stories? Every game has a story. Right. So coming into it with this particular game and this matchup, even though it's only game 1 of an 82 game season, there's a lot of fun storylines in this game. So and Fred's going to be a guy in the building looking for those storylines. He's going to give us the reports and the quotes afterward, but he will have the take on whether it's the Holiday Brunson angle. He will have a story that's more than just who won, who lost.
Mm-hmm.
Man, guys, I don't know about you, but I'm excited.
We're in game shape. We came into this season game shape. We're 2-0 right now. We're 2-0.
Two good
episodes
back to back.
Well, everybody in the chat, we appreciate all you guys tuning in. As you know, make sure to give us a like, subscribe, follow us on X. We've got the schedule there of all of our upcoming guests, and obviously super excited to be doing this all season long. Heck, before we wrap up, bro.
Yes.
I want to play this commercial little plug that we were sent over. If you want to just go ahead and get the little details on that, and we'll exit out with this right here.
I want to shout out my guy Alexander Hagani. He hit me up on Twitter yesterday, somebody that I've been following, and he worked on a spec commercial for the Knicks. If you watch this, you would think this was already playing on MSG. So I just want to give a quick shout out to my guy Alexander, his producer as well, Stefan. If you go into the description, all the credits is in the description on the bottom. Make sure you guys go support him on Instagram as well. I linked that Instagram to the description as well. So play it and take us out because I think this is the perfect commercial to end the show with.
I agree. Jerry, any last words? Phil, we good?
I'm just ready to go. Phil, I don't know about you. I'm ready to go. Let's roll it out.
You know, I told you guys, and I'm going to tell everyone in the chat that does have my personal number or my Twitter. I have a photo shoot at start time, so I'll be watching the game. Do not text me with any spoilers. I will unfriend you super fast. But, you know, I'm looking forward to tonight. Let's see how we do. Kristaps Porzingis is back in the building. KP.
Let's go, Knicks.
New York City. You don't have to be from here to understand here.
Watch this play.
But you do have to understand here to get why this matters. Because this game doesn't only mean something to me, it means something to every single one of us. It's who we are. Because every year, what keeps us going is when
Madison Square Garden, please. Let's go.
they're back.
They're back.
They're back. They're back. Give it back, man. Give it back. The Knicks is back.
They're back.
They're back.
They're back, baby.
My sister's sleeping.
Sorry, Mom.